A top seed is down and out, the big four are back in action, and Amazon Prime is not quite sublime. I'm here to round up and analyse the first round of the 2018 US Open. Hey guys, welcome back to the tennis vlog. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Thank you to everyone who has helped us to hit 1,000 subscribers. Stay tuned to the end of the video for more on that. The season has whizzed by in a flash and we are already at the scene of the fourth and final Grand Slam of the season. It's the US Open and round one is down and out. I've been told I use the word interesting a lot, but it was a very interesting round, it really was. One or two highly notable losses and some key performances from title contenders, so here I am to round it up for you and give my opinions and analysis on the tennis that went on and assess one or two controversies as well. So to kick things off, I am going to pick 6 key... that looks weird. So to kick things off, I am going to pick 6 key winners from the WTA Tour and 6 key winners from the ATP Tour from the first round and assess what they did particularly well in their matches and why their victory is important going forward, besides the fact that it keeps them in the tournament. Starting off with the women's side of things, which saw a really intriguing draw and a stacked top quarter containing Simona Halep and Serena Williams. Well, Serena Williams is still in after winning her first round match 6-4, 6-love over Magda Linette. She made a good start against Linette. I felt it was efficient in the first set and a lot flashier and a lot more impressive in the second set. Kind of used the first set to find her groove and really started going for it and attacking a lot more in the second. She ended the match with a clean differential of winners to unforced errors, 23 winners in total over 16 games, which is pretty decent. It was a bit of a mixed bag for Serena at times. She will see a lot that she wants to improve on from that match, but some of the returning that I was seeing from Serena was 2013-esque. I think 2013 was one of the peak years, if not the peak year for Serena in terms of the level of her tennis and the amount of tennis that she was able to play. In 2013 she was just going for the winner straight away and I saw a lot of that against Linette. The returning was very ambitious. And then Linette's serve just grew less and less resistant as the match wore on because Serena was warming up. It was she who had the key weapons and Linette is a decent player but no distinct weapons herself and not enough consistency to match Serena. She's on track to face sister Venus Williams in the third round, and Venus, I find it harder to see her winning the US Open this season, plainly because she has not had a very satisfactory year compared to last year when she was doing really well. She reached 2 Grand Slam finals. Towards the end of the tournament last year when Venus was in the semi-finals, I kind of felt at that point the tournament was on her racket. This year she hasn't been playing the kind of tennis which makes her a standout contender leading into the event, but her first round match made her want to watch because she took down Svetlana Kuznetsova, the 2004 champion, and she really fought through some tough conditions to do it. Kuznetsova isn't the player she once was, but when she's on her day she can produce some great tennis, some great resistance. She hits a very heavy ball, can be very difficult to put away, and Venus found that because she was up a set and 4-1 when Kuznetsova came charging back to take the second set 7-5, and in the third set you could see that Venus was struggling a bit, but she hit her marks when it mattered most. It was all about the timing for Venus, and I think at the end of the day, edging that one in 3 sets and outlasting Kuznetsova in an almost 3-hour battle, I think that could be more beneficial for Venus going forwards than winning in straight sets. Maybe not if she gets really deep into the draw, because then we could see tiredness coming into play, but just for her mentality and her confidence it's really big for Venus. So moving on to a woman who really shouldn't be overlooked this fortnight, Angelique Kerber, the Wimbledon champion, who I feel was overlooked a bit in London. On the surface it looks like a pretty straightforward result for Kerber, 7-6, 6-3 over Margarita Gasparian, who's just coming back from injury, but actually Gasparian played some really top level tennis at times during their encounter. Maybe the fact that she's just coming back to the tour and has few expectations for herself allowed Gasparian to loosen up a bit, because she was really going for it off both the forehand and backhand wing, and she was keeping the consistency during the rallies, which was absolutely key against Kerber, who is always going to get those extra balls back, who can place really difficult angles on the course and make you move. Gasparian was coping with that really well, and when she had a ball in a great place she was not hesitating to move up to the net. I think it's a great testament to Kerber's mental strength during that match and her ability to focus on everything point by point that she came through in straight sets. Going down a seed to number 5, a key result for Petra Kvitova, putting away Janina Wickmeyer, a former semi-finalist here, 6-1, 6-4, pretty swift from Kvitova. She's always going to be a confusing one, Kvitova, because she's very streaky and she can go from hot in one match to cold in her next match. But it was a very smart and tactical match from Kvitova. She was playing in the blazing New York heat, which has caused many a problem already this fortnight. She was moving up to the net to finish off the points quickly. Anything could change over the next few days, but it's always more positive than negative to win your first round match in straight sets, it goes without saying, especially for Petra Kvitova, who often grinds through 3-set matches when she could win in straights. 2 more players bagged what I thought were especially key straight sets wins. One of those players was Garbine Muguruza, who is seeded down at number 12 this fortnight, and she came past Shuai Zhang for the loss of 3 games, 6-3, 6-love. I've said before that Muguruza tends to play her best tennis at the Grand Slams when she's under the radar, when there is no self-inflicted pressure and when there is no external pressure either, or at least less external pressure, because there will always be some. Zhang is a player who has knocked off top opposition on these stages before, and Muguruza just didn't waste any time during that first round match. She's never had a standout run at the US Open before, but she has all the tools to make it work. She has a game that translates well across all surfaces, and because for time's sake we have to keep it to 6 players, Sloane Stephens is my final key result, the 3rd seed and defending champion, beating Evgenia Rodina 6-1, 7-5. The WTA saw 2 first-time Grand Slam champions last season. One of them was Jelena Ostapenko at the French Open, and the other was Sloane Stephens at the US Open. This season we saw Ostapenko really struggle with the pressure of being a defending champion, having come out of nowhere to win the French last season, and she stumbled to a first-round defeat at Roland Garros this year. Stephens also was a pretty unexpected victor, given that she had been out for 11 months with injury for which she needed surgery just shortly before she came back to win the US Open. Several people had her down as a dark horse because of her great results heading into the event, but it was still a massive achievement for her to win her maiden Grand Slam title so soon on the heels of injury. So this was a very new situation for Stephens coming back to New York, and she went down love 40 immediately in her first service game. But she managed to grit out a hold, and that seemed to be what she needed to loosen up. And I think it's good for Stephens that she was pushed closer in the second set and managed to edge that one out, because she comes through a match that didn't go to 3 sets and therefore didn't expend unnecessary energy, but she got a good mix of being able to dominate in the first set and be able to fight through a bit more in the second. So they are just 6 of many notable results from the first round of the women's. Moving on to 6 key first round winners from the men's draw, and it makes sense to start with the top seed, Rafael Nadal, who came through in a set and a half after David Ferrer retired partway through their encounter. As I'm sure many are aware, it was Ferrer's final Grand Slam match of his career, so seriously gutting that he had to pull out, because he's been known throughout a really great career for being such a fighter, for having so much passion, for hanging on, gritting matches out. He has everything to be proud of as he walks away from the sport. But in terms of Nadal's performance, while Ferrer was in good physical fitness because he picked up an injury partway through the second set, once he found his range and got going, Nadal was doing very well unleashing the forehand. He played with quite an attacking mindset. There were a lot of fast exchanges from the baseline, and he was staying focused, low over the ball. And as his ranking reflects, Nadal has, of all the players on tour, had the most consistent year. There is actually no part of the season that you can indicate and say, look, Nadal's level dropped here, or his results went really down. So for me, the standout contenders for this year's US Open title are Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic, and my gut says Nadal and my head says Djokovic, and we all know that I never go with my guts. So moving on to 2 players who are slightly under the radar but produced convincing first round wins. The first of these, number 3 seed Juan Martín del Potro. It's kind of weird to see Del Potro ranked as high as number 3, because usually he is one of the dangerous underdogs coming into the event, having dealt so much with injury in the past and having spent a while coming back from that. Del Potro had a pretty enviable first round match. Donald Young has struggled a lot over the past few years, to the point where he even considered retirement. But he was American, did have a lot of the crowd on his side, but Del Potro came through 6 love 6-3, 6-4. Del Potro's massive serve and massive forehand are always going to be a lethal combination on any fast surface, and he notably came through to make the semi-finals here last season, beating Roger Federer after coming back from 2-0 down against Dominic Thiem. Even more notably, he won the title in 2009, so we know these are conditions that Del Potro feels comfortable in. Another player whose win I think is worth noting is Kei Nishikori's, because Nishikori has been seriously under the radar heading into the US Open, to the point where I can't remember hearing anyone else mention his name when previewing the event. He's seeded number 21. He started coming back from injury a few months into the current season. He was facing Maximilian Martyra, a 23-year-old who's been having a career best season, but when Nishikori's feeling his all-court game, he can be a seriously tough opponent. He's almost like a brick wall that is built all the way along his side of the court, up at the front and right at the back as well. 6-2, 6-2, 6-3 is a really decent first round victory, and the more Nishikori finds his groove on these courts, the more likely he's going to be a challenge for the top players come the latter stages of the event. Alexander Zverev also has a chance to keep rising up without too much pressure on him for a change. He's still seeded in the top 4, but as mentioned, the spotlight is on the big 4, and Zverev has a bit of time to kind of relax a bit, find his way at the US Open. He's never been past the second round here, so important for him to be feeling good in the early stages. His opponent was Peter Polansky, who has famously been a lucky loser at all 4 Grand Slams this season. It was 6-2, 6-1, 6-2 to Zverev. As the amount of titles he's amassed over the past couple of years goes to show, Zverev just has the weapons to be a lethal opponent on any surface. And he has that champion's mentality, which is what has seen him make strides. He's been bred to be a champion. He's had the support team around him from a young age. He's really got the big serve, the ground strokes. Zverev dropped less games in the first round than any other player in the draw, but a man who had the opportunity to beat his record was Roger Federer, who could clearly have won his match 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, but he opted for a 6-2, 6-2, 6-4 victory over Yoshihito Nishioka. As I've said previously, it was pretty much exhibition-style tennis from Federer for the majority of the clash. He was really just going for his shots from the offset, off the forehand and backhand wing, closing into the net, finishing the points off, and he just seemed to be in his own little bubble, his own little world for the majority of the clash. He'd flash a forehand, miss it by miles, shake it off, and just walk on and hit another insane winner. It was like watching a man who has had almost 20 years experience on tour. Pretty routine for Federer until the latter stages, when he was tossing in a lot more errors. He was really missing some of his shots by miles, and other players would have made him pay, but I think the key here is that Federer knew he wasn't facing other players. So round 1, Federer just did what he needed to do and produced some stunning tennis on the way, so I expect him to keep improving throughout the tournament, but if he brought that standard against Nick Kyrgios in round 3, then he could well be on his way out of the event. And finally, on to number 6 seed Novak Djokovic, many people's favourite for the US Open title. Djokovic was playing in the peak heat of the day, and he really struggled. In set 3, I believe he asked for a bin to be placed by his chair in case he vomited. And it was at the beginning of set 3 that he was really in a little bit of danger, because Marton Fucsovics, who he was playing, was going toe-to-toe with him, playing with a lot of confidence and determination, stepping up to finish the points off. And Djokovic himself was throwing in unforced errors, dumping neutral forehands and backhands into the net. But champions find a way, and Djokovic just hung on until he saw an opportunity, kept pegging Fucsovics back, broke when he needed to, and when he won that third set, he celebrated as if he had won the match, and I think you could tell at that point that he had almost broken his opponent's spirit. The way he flew through that 4th set means that Djokovic really is still one of the key players to watch, and I think it's helpful for him, as with some of the other players that I mentioned, that he has come through a battle early on. It gives him more time on court, it shows him what he needs to work on, and Djokovic, for me, should definitely be going deep into this draw. Moving on to shock exits, and on the men's side, I was not really shocked by any of the results. Grigor Dimitrov out in the first round of a second straight Grand Slam, but for the second straight Grand Slam he was playing Stan Wawrinka, who should technically be seeded at this event given his ability and given that he was the champion here 2 years ago. Of all the results, I was probably most surprised by Kyle Edmund losing to Paolo Lorenzi. Edmund has come on a lot this season, really upped the mental strength, gone out believing he can win every match, tightened up his game, but by his own accounts he was still suffering from illness during his loss to Lorenzi, who is a very experienced player, so that half explains that one really. The massive result, without a doubt, was Simona Halep's swift loss to Kaia Kanepi right at the beginning of the tournament, 6-2, 6-4. I think the most surprising thing about this loss was how fast it came. A lot of people had Halep down as a favourite for the title because of her great form entering the event. She won the title in Canada, she had championship points in Cincinnati before losing to Kiki Bertens. But that threw up warning signs for me personally, because on the women's tour, the players that are particularly standout heading into a Grand Slam, if their name isn't Serena Williams, they are more likely than not going to lose at the major. I'm not entirely sure why this is. It could have a lot to do with self-inflicted pressure, it could have even more to do with external pressure, and the players they come up against could be more determined to take them down knowing the kind of form that they're in. But Halep really did have it tough against Kanepi, because Kanepi is a very experienced player. She's been around for a long time. She made the quarterfinals here last year, and when she's on her day she can pack a really good punch. Against Halep, she was just totally taking time away from her, pinpointing her second serve and attacking it. And the return game really was key for Kanepi, because she was either going for a winner immediately off the return, or she was setting herself up to be the aggressor on the front foot during the rally, and when she was dictating Halep, she was doing so with utter consistency. I think the two only real regrets Halep can have from that match were the serve could have been better on the day, but also the way she pulled it back in the second set from being a double break down to coming to 4-all. She then completely let it go, and she let Kanepi back into the match. Once Kanepi saw a slight opening, she jumped on it and she really earned the result, but Halep could have done a lot more to stall her in the second set. And finally, onto a little bit of controversy which concerns the general coverage of the US Open. If you are in the UK, there is one option in order to watch the US Open, and that is coverage by Amazon Prime for the first time in history. Amazon Prime made the highest bid for rights to the US Open, and you can now watch it by subscribing to Amazon Prime and having access to 4 courts via their online streaming system. Now, I have to say that despite disliking the idea of Amazon Prime being the main streaming platform for the US Open this season, I haven't had a problem with it personally to date. There are 4 streaming options. You have the 3 main courts and a pick of the outside courts, and although there have been 1 or 2 matches that I would like to watch that I haven't been able to, in general I'm not going to be watching more than 4 matches at a time. It's not possible to analyse them all properly or have a good idea of what's been going on to get the scoreline to where it's at. But there have been complaints, which I understand, about the headline for each court not actually saying which player is competing. There have been complaints about the quality of the streams and also the lack of highlights after matches. I can't speak for that myself because I've been watching via laptops and computers anyway, so the stream is always going to be a little more jittery than it would be was I watching on TV. But my personal feelings on this, my main reason why I was against the streaming being on Amazon Prime, is people are always talking about how they want to grow the sport. And in order to grow the sport, you need to put the sport where the consumers are going to be. People who are going on Amazon Prime are mainly going to watch films, and some people will get Amazon Prime in order to watch the tennis, but they are the audience that you already have. So if you're talking about growing the sport, I don't see why you're putting one of the biggest events in the sports on an online streaming platform where a lot of sports fans aren't going to see it. The US Open is a fantastic tournament and one of the biggest in tennis, and I think it should be on the big screen in the UK. And it does confuse me why, when they have the ability to stream more matches, Amazon Prime are choosing not to. They could be covering more courts, it is possible. So personally, I think it's early days. I think Amazon Prime could definitely improve their coverage and probably will over time. I would personally prefer the tennis to be on the big screen for anyone who wishes to watch it. But so far, Prime's coverage has been all I've needed personally. Please comment and let me know your experiences and how you found the streaming service, and if you've had to miss certain matches you would have liked to watch, and what you think can be done to improve it. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment and let me know which first round matches impressed you the most and who you think will win the tournament. As previously mentioned, we have now hit 1,000 subscribers, and I did promise that when we hit 1,000 subs I would do another Q&A video. So a very general one, you can ask me anything. It can be about tennis, it can be about anything else within reason. So if you want to ask a question for that, leave it in the comments. I will be back with some preview and predictions videos next week, and hopefully some more roundup videos this week, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.